Hi, welcome to the Book Corner with me, Mish Atagana. Let's discover new worlds together. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Book Corner with me, Mish Atagana. Today we are going to talk about a trilogy that I believe when I first started reading them, it felt so grounded in just African storytelling and the way Africans tell story, not just because we have sometimes, a voice of a griot telling us bits of the story, but it's just so incredible. And the author is a masterpiece. These books just got completed. It's the Ending Fire trilogy with the Final Strife as our first book, The Battle Drum as the second book, and The Ending Fire as the last book, published by Harper Voyager. These books are by Saara El-Arifi. Now, what I'm going to do today is a little bit different. I'm going to read you the dedication from each book as I tell you about the books, because I just really loved the dedication of these books and some of the ways in which they start. So for Final Strife, the dedication is to those who dream in color, which is interesting as someone who actually dreams in black and white. But yeah, so this is super interesting. And then there's a bit here that I love, and this really sets up the whole story we're about to witness. It goes, stolen, sharpened, the hidden key will destroy the empire and set you free, churned up from the shadows to tear it apart, a dancer's grace, a killer's instinct, an ember's heart, an ember's blood, and a duster's heart. So this is really important. Actually, I'm going to read that line again because it's super important. Like, a dancer's grace, a killer's instinct, an ember's blood, a duster's heart. The plantation chant of the stolen. So Final Strife tells of the story of Sila. Sila is among the stolen. So in this society, there are three races that we meet. The blue bloods, which are the dusters, so their blood is actually blue. The red-blooded people, which are the embers, and this is the ruling class. And then the transparent blood people, who are the slave class of the society. And it's such a fascinating way to kind of classify people and kind of group people in a society. And we'll get to see a little bit more as the books kind of carry on. But the stolen are ember children who were stolen to be raised by dusters so they can one day upend the empire and create a fairer would-be society. Now, Sila, who is born an ember with red blood, grew up as a duster, so she has a duster's heart. And they have this trial called the Aktabar trial. The Aktabar trial is where they pick who the new wardens of the empire will be. So there's a warden of strength, a warden of law or justice, as they call it. So it's different wardens for different things. And the point is for Sila to go become the warden of strength. And in the end, upend this whole society. But Sila is low-key addicted to drugs and just like all-round degenerate. Let's be honest. But she's an incredible fighter. Like, she really does have, the grace of a dancer when she's fighting. And she's got a killer instinct like no other. And in an attempt to kind of figure out, what to do, if she should do this, she ends up going to figure out who her would have been actual parent was, that she was stolen from. Because they also not only stole the kids, they exchanged them with duster children. And she ends up in Anor's room. And Anor is the daughter of the Warden of Strength. And Anor is a blue blood. And it kind of all becomes like this whole thing where they have this kind of moment of a fight. And in the end, Sila begins to train Anor to get her ready for the Aktabar because she doesn't want to take it herself. And there's also the people with the red bloods. They do a magic, which they call it blood work. So they use their blood to like do magic runes and able to kind of use it for things like plumbing and random things like, things like that. And the theory or the notion that everybody's been raised on is the fact that people with different color bloods can't blood work. So this is kind of the premise of the Final Strife. As the book goes on, this whole book takes place with the Aktabar trial with Sila and Anor, and one of their other friends kind of going through these trials and getting ready to figure out how they make sure, one, they get through the trial with Anor, who has a blue blood, and that blue blood doesn't show when she's in the trial, because if it shows, she's dead, right? And that's not a good thing. And then with Sila, who is now recovering from the Joba seed that she's addicted to, so she can have a clear mind and be like a better teacher and all of that, while also trying to learn blood work, so that she can also use that for the better. So our book kind of ends with where we have Sila. So Anua wins the Akhtaba for Warden of Strength. Sila has to go figure out that how to save the empire if they're not going to do it, this way. And they have to cross this sea to the mainland because they live on this island. So they have to cross the sea to the mainland, and they feel that help might be on the other side. So we leave at the end of the Final Strife where two main heroines, Sila and Anua, have to say goodbye to each other. And oh, surprise, surprise, in this whole point, they've developed a relationship. So the romance begins there. Okay, so Battle Drum. So it takes us to Battle Drum, right? So Battle Drum, Sila, John, that's their male friend that was helping them, that was also going through the trials. They go off, they're on their way to this mainland. This is dedication for Battle Drum. For my mother, whose battle drum has never stopped beating, my fighter, my friend, my champion. And guys, I love a map. Look, another map. A fantastic map. So this is really important. So the ghostings, remember I told you about the people with the transparent blood. So they are called the ghostings. Now this is the truth of the empire, signed by Du, a ghosting elder. Their ships came in on the morning mist. First, they tried to trade coal, sugar, rubber. But while we counted coins, they invaded. They pillaged our land, taking what was not theirs. They stole blood work from our minds. Then they erased us. Assimilation followed dissemination, hand by hand, tongue by tongue, and now they rule until we rise. So the ghostings, when they're born, they're mutilated. You take out their tongue and they take away their hands. So they have created a whole new language, which they literally sign with like their whole body. So they created a whole new sign language. The ghostings lived on this island that the red and the blue bloods came to invade. And when they invaded, it's like, you can see the themes here. It's like colonialism 101. It's happening right here. They began with trade, and all of a sudden they took the ghostings' land. And this is what we learn when we get to the battle drum. So we get to the battle drum, we learn that not only are there multiple blood colors, the reds are actually not the ones that are in power on the mainland. So on the mainland, there's like green blood color, yellow blood color, there's transparent blood color, red, blue, and I want to say there was orange as well. But each blood color had a task in society, and the Zalam have risen. So Zalam is like this fanatical group who want to bring the ending fire. In their opinion, the ending fire will come so they can cleanse the world of those that don't believe in their weird crocodile god. It's like, so I think Saara has like Ghanaian and Middle Eastern heritage. So she's really pulled in, some of these kind of mythologies from these different parts. I think Sudanese a bit, yeah. From her different kind of heritage. But they literally have this fanatical thing. They created a whole raging sea monster that you have to sacrifice people to cross the ocean. And when Sila and John get to the mainland, the first thing that happens to them is they get kidnapped by slave traders. And now they got to figure out a way to escape. And when they meet all these people, and they learn about the way other people use blood magic, because by the way, this whole idea of magic in these books is blood. It has to do with blood. You need blood for magic to be done. Without blood, there can be no magic, right? And it's such a fascinating kind of story with the way we learn about battle drum. We learn that the whole kind of story of even how the dusters were kidnapped, the embers were kidnapped to be raised as duster children, is something that is being done by this character named the Wife. And the character named the Wife is who is controlling everything. And she turns out to be Anua's grandmother, adopted grandmother, because she was swapped as a child. And she's actually has yellow blood. not red or blue. And it literally it appends our whole story, because now Anur has been accused of killing someone and she didn't do it, and now they all have to run to go get the Zalam ready for war so the ending fire can happen. And that's kind of where we leave Battle Drum. And then we come to the epic conclusion in the ending fire. So the ending fire, the dedication is for Jim until the end. And there really is a finality in the way the ending fire story is told. So now we have Saila is back at the Empire, well, on the island. She's learned the truth that actually everybody's effed up. Like, there's a huge problem. The threat is not the Embers who they're trying to fight on the island. The main threat is the Zalam, is these people that want to wage war across the land and literally annihilate anyone that doesn't think like they do or believe like they do. And now we've got our two main characters who are both pining for each other, because again, this is the loves of each other's, they're the loves of each other's lives, but they're on opposite ends of this battle now, where Saila is, her aim is to stop the Zalam and make sure that the world doesn't go into chaos, or, you know, these psychotic people don't like destroy the world. Whereas Anur is, on the other hand, the champion of the Zalam, where she is bringing the ending fire, and her very the sacrifice of her life will be the thing that will unleash, you know, the worst of the onslaught. And I just love the way that when the two characters finally realize that they're on opposite sides of this battle, is how they figure out. And it also, like, there's so much trauma in the way that these women, these young girls, go through their lives and come to this point. And there's a lot of almost like grooming that's been done on Anur's part, where she feels like what she's doing is the will of this, you know, God that they serve. And if she doesn't do this, like, she is not and they've dubbed her the child. And if she doesn't do this child of fire, that it'll be her fault that the world will fall into darkness and stuff like that. And I love the way we end things in this book. Like, the last kind of chapter of this book talk about the epilogue, where Saila and Anur kind of claw their way out of like a sand dune, but at the end it literally is like it goes, a quarry bird flew overhead and they both watched it glide across the cloudless sky. Saila smiled. Wherever we are, at least we're together. Anur's face appeared above Sila's, blocking out the blue of the horizon. Her grin was full of affection as she leaned towards Saila. Together, Anur said, her fingers intertwined with Sila's braids, drawing her close until their lips brushed, and spoke until the end. And I really like that dedication kind of ends this book quite nicely. So for me, I think when we think about the story, like, a very important thing here is the blood colors are how the society is defined. So their social hierarchies, their way of life is defined by these blood colors, right? But also within that, there's like all these different classes of people. So you've got like these almost like academics in the society who have reverence for, you know, the way the magic is done through blood and stuff like that. And you can see where the yellow bloods who begin to lead this whole insanity of the Zalam, and the person who created it through this kind of other element of magic, which is the element of creation and destruction. It's driven out of wanting to claw more at power, right? So it's an age-old story of society. Power hungry people will all be power hungry, and more power does not beget satisfaction or content. What it begets is more greed and more want for power and more control and more kind of, you know, subjugation of other people. And this is what pretty much happened. So when in the battle drum, or when we begin to learn how the red bloods and blue bloods came to the island, it is actually because they sacrificed like other blood colors that were with them. 6 ships left for the island with different blood colors. Only about 2 or so made it to the island because they sacrificed the other ships to cross in this great monster that was created by this Zalam fanatic prophet who began all of this. So I think, what Saara does really well here is everybody gets a chance to really look at themselves and their actions. And the deep fanatics stay deeply fanatic. Like the wife believes she is called to her. She's on a holy war, and it is her job to cleanse the world. And for her, that holy war is valid, and she feels justified in it. Just like for Sila, who is like, I just want to get high and just be me. She's now burdened with this insanity of saving a world that she didn't even know half of it existed in the first place. So I do think like she's done a really good job of just mapping out that hierarchy through those blood colors. And I love this idea that it's not about the color of your skin, it's about the color of your blood that decides how important. So what's inside is what's deciding how important you are to society as opposed to what's without. When you look at so the world building is impeccable. Firstly, it is an insanely intricate, magnificently crafted world, the story. And the actions of people can physically be felt in the world. So because of this blood work that they do, the world literally is tearing itself apart. So they have like sandstorms, they have like avalanches, they have this insane weather patterns. Like their world is breaking because they are doing magic in a perverse and corrupted way. And I think that the setting for each thing, from the empire to the mainland and the different parts of the mainland, we can feel that effect. We can feel the thing that the humans are doing that is affecting their society. It's also kind of commentary on climate change, to be honest, where you can feel the effect, how they actively are destroying their world because of their greed and their selfishness. Oh, I must say, one thing I love about these books, our characters grow. They stretch and they bend and they twist and they morph and transform into many, many different people and many different things. And I loved that. I love that the Sila we met, the irresponsible, high on Joba seed, lethal fighter without any real structure or restraint, because she just wasn't actually giving it at all because she was high most of the time, become a true, I love that mantra of this, and Sila says it a lot. It literally becomes Sila's kind of motto every time she's about to enter like the state of like focus and awareness. She says it to herself, a dancer's grace, a killer's instinct, an ember's blood, a duster's heart. And even you as the reader, you start to feel it. You're like, okay, we're about to do we're about to F shit up, and I love that by the end, she's not just the dancer's grace for sure. She always had, but her killer, she's not just a killer, she becomes this person who has honed her rage and her hurt and her pain and her despair into a weapon so formidable that she's unstoppable now. And for lack of everything else, she has a righteous cause, and that is, the love of her life. And I think for me, like watching that character grow to become the woman who would rather sacrifice herself than watch the person she loves dies, is really incredible. Because at the beginning, she's as selfish as they come. And there's another character in here that I haven't mentioned, Hassa. So Hassa is a ghosting, and I love the way we see Hassa's story. So a ghosting is a transparent blood person who is mostly invisible because they're mostly slaves to the empire. So no one notices them go places. So Hassa can move around the empire. She deals in secrets. So she collects secrets. She knows what everyone's doing. She knows what's going on with everyone. And I love the way we kind of see Hassa also grow as a character. Like even learning blood work, which it turns out to be a ghosting thing anyway. Like they invented blood work. Learning blood work with no hands and leading. She becomes a leader in the revolution that is to come, and the ghostings look up to her, and I really love that. And Noah going through like having to almost be deprogrammed from the cult of Zalam that she was in, to figure out a way to make sure she's able to fight for the empire. And John, who we began with, who is still loyal to like the cause of the stolen, and learns more about the stolen and goes, oh shit, I did not sign up for that. And to see him also become a much better version of himself, and watch him and Sila's relationship, which was kind of mostly like this booty call situation, to like this really pure friendship. I think that was really, really good. I just love that. The way I felt reading these books, right? Like I always struggle when I read books where there's definitely a high notion of subjugation, right? So where there's a slave class and a kind of subjugated class, I'm always going to feel some type of way when I read books like that. And I've read a lot of books like that recently, and I'm just like, can we not? So I'm going to feel some type of way when I do that. And when you think about the way the dusters and the ghostings are portrayed here, no one is wronged more in this book than the ghostings. To have your identity robbed from you, to take away your name, take away your ability to speak, your ability, like it is the most debasing form of just like humans being terrible to each other. And then to know that these are all descendants of people who kind of lived in semi-harmony at one point, and the red bloods actually weren't that high up in the hierarchy of things on the mainland, but they saw an opportunity to seize power and then usurped an island where people were there living their lives, and they welcomed you. And so it definitely does leave you a little bit thinking about the world and human beings, and realizing that no matter what side of history we're on, human beings stay being terrible. And that kind of sucks. I had a conversation with someone a while ago where I'd said to them, I don't think you're a very nice person. And I ended up retracting, and I was like, actually, no, I don't think you're a very nice person to me. And because I have this thing where I think we are capable of great good and we're capable of great evil. It's the choices we make that decide who we are at the end of the day. And for some reason, and society today tells us that human beings keep making the wrong choices. We keep thinking things like genocide, it's okay. And this is literally what has happened here, where with the ghosting, there was almost a genocide of a people, and they only kept the one they kept around just because they needed slaves. And I find that so interesting. I also find that very interesting in a theme by authors who are of Arabic or Middle Eastern descent, because I just finished a series of book called An Ember in the Ashes, and there's a similar theme around, a group of people who technically were the predominant members of that society or the specific part of society becoming enslaved by another group and things like that. So I think for me, when I think about the real world and the similarities here is this idea of subjugation, and this idea of looking at the things that makes us different, focusing way too much on the things that make us different as opposed to the things that keep us the same. What made me hopeful about this book? This is a really interesting thought. The women. I know, guys, I keep reading books that have very strong female characters, but the women in this book are formidable. The good ones are insane at what they do. The bad ones are insane at what they do. But it's so hard to decide who's a villain sometimes in any story, right? It's really hard to decide who's a villain. But the women are remarkable. The way Saara writes these women and the things they go through and how they overcome and how they fight, it is phenomenal. That is all I can say. The women in this book, wow, all of them, from even the Warden of Strength, who was kind of a sadist, to the wife who, she's a psychotic cult leader, but you got to give it to the woman. She had vision and dedication, you know, to Sila, who is a broken girl trying to find her way and carries a lot of guilt about the death of a bunch of her adopted family, to Sila's adopted mother, who tried to protect her child at the end, even though Sila never thought she cared, to Anur, who was this timid young woman who became a warrior and she didn't know she had that warrior inside of her, to Hassa, a voiceless, handless ghosting who helped pioneer a revolution, to Anur's god, who turned out to be the mother to her that she didn't know she had, who literally wrote, like, was writing her favorite, you know, graphic novel without her knowing that she was the secret publisher of this graphic novel that she loved to read. To the women we meet on the mainland, you know, I just feel the women are just, they're so well written and they each play such crucial roles in the story and the war that came. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, when I first started reading the story, I think I picked up, I'm trying to remember where I got those. I got this book at a Waterstones and it was just sitting there and I just started reading it and then I bought it. It was such a captivating story that I had to know more. And I feel for me, because I wanted to again read more, you know, authors like with either a Middle Eastern or African background. And I love that this story literally took a culture, a mythos, and just blended it in such a beautiful tapestry, and a fantastic dance about war and the cost of war and the cost of subjugations. I really like that. So Final Strife, or the Ending Fire trilogy, by Saara El-Arifi, published by Harper Voyager. I think you guys, if you enjoy fantasy, I think you should read it. It's such a fantastic series to read. They're quite thick, some of them, but I think, you know, it's worth the read. And again, I keep that mantra. I love that mantra so much. Like, a dancer's grace, a killer's instinct, an ember's blood, a duster's heart. And that's, at the end of the day, as much as it was the chant of the stolen, which was like these people who were meant to go take down the empire so that other people can be in charge. I think there's something about this combination of those things to make up the sum of one's whole. There's something quite beautiful about it. So yeah, that's the Ending Fire trilogy. Thank you so much for joining me once again on the Book Corner. I'm Mish Atagana, and I hope to see you next time. Don't forget to follow the podcast, and do not forget to go on TikTok and follow Books and Sneakers. And we out.